Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses as we continue with Part 5, The Origin of Freemasonry, the 1717 theory exploded by Chalmers I, Paton. We must now go farther back in the history of Masonry and inquire into its existence and nature in centuries previous to the 16th. We shall find important aid in the ancient charges preserved in a manuscript in possession of the Lodge of Antiquity in London and written in the reign of James II of England. The date of the manuscript thus appears to belong to the latter part of the 17th century, although the charges must be supposed to be really of much more ancient date. How much more ancient it is not necessary for the present purpose to inquire. In fact, insofar as the 1717 theory is concerned, it is enough to show that these charges existed in the latter part of the 17th century, and that they manifest the existence of a system of Masonry essentially the same with that which now exists, not a system pertaining to a mere operative craft or guild. The proof of this is best to be found in the charges themselves, and therefore they are here subjoined. Every man that is a Mason take good heed to these charges, we pray, that if any man finds himself guilty of any of these charges, he may amend himself, or principally for dread of God. You that are charged, take good heed that you keep these charges well, for it is a great evil for a man to forswear himself upon a book. The first charge is that you shall be true men to God and the Holy Church, and to use no error or heresy by your understanding and by wise men's teaching. Also, secondly, that you shall be true liegemen to the King of England without treason or any falsehood, and that you know no reason or treachery, but you shall give notice thereof to the King or to his council. Also, you shall be true one to another, that is to say, every Mason to the craft that is Mason allowed. You shall do to him as you would be done unto yourself. Thirdly, and you shall keep truly all the counsel that ought to be kept in the way of Masonry, and all the counsel of the lodge or of the chamber. Also, that you shall be no thief nor thieves, to your knowledge free, that you shall be true to the king, lord, or master that you serve, and truly to see and work to his advantage. Fourthly, you shall call Masons your fellows or your brethren, and no other names. Fifthly, you shall not take your fellow's wife in villainy, nor deflower his daughter or servant, nor put him to no dishonor. Sixthly, you shall truly pay for your meat or drink wherever you go, to table or board. Also, you shall do no villainy whereby the craft or science may be slandered. These be the charges general to every true Mason, both masters and fellows. It is evident enough from these charges that the system of Masonry in the 17th century had in it peculiarities which distinguished it from mere operative crafts. No such care was exercised by any other craft or guild as to the morals of their members, but here we find morality put in the first place, if indeed religion may not be said to precede it. Religion and morality, however, are inseparable, and morality is properly based upon religion. The Mason is required to be a true man to God and the Holy Church, and to use no error or heresy, by his understanding and by wise men's teaching. In what other craft, it may be asked, in what other guild were such charges ever framed? Until this question is answered by the production of sufficient evidence, we must hold that Masonry had a peculiar position in the 17th century, very different from that of ordinary crafts and guilds, and that in fact it was of a nature very different. We may, however, go on to quote the remainder of the charges, of which the first part has just been given. And whilst we see in them evidence of the relation of the whole system to operative Masonry, we shall see further evidence that it was something more. Now I will rehearse other charges single for Masons allowed or accepted. First, that no Mason take on him no Lord's work, nor other man's, so that the craft have no slander. Secondly, also, that no master take work, but that he take reasonable pay for it, so that the Lord may be truly served, and the master to live honestly, and to pay his fellows truly. And that no master or fellow supplant others of their work, that is to say, that if he have taken a work, or else stand master of any work, that he shall not put him out, unless he unable of cunning to make an end of his work. And no master nor fellow shall take an apprentice for less than 7 years, and that the apprentice be free-born and of limbs whole as a man ought to be, and no bastard, and that no master or fellow take no allowance to be made Mason without the assent of his fellows, at least 6 or 7. Thirdly, that he that be made be able in all degrees, that is, free-born, of good kindred, true, and no bondsman, and that he have his right limbs as a man ought to have. Fourthly, that no master take an apprentice unless he have occupation to occupy 2 or 3 fellows at the least. Fifthly, that no master or fellow put away any lord's work to task that ought to be journey work. Sixthly, that every master give pay to his fellows and servants as they may deserve, so that he be not defamed with false working, and that none slander another behind his back, to make him lose his good name. Seventhly, that no fellow in the house or abroad answer another ungodly or reprovably without a cause. Eighthly, that every master mason do reverence to his elder, and that a mason be no common player at the cards, dice, or hazard, nor at any other unlawful plays, through the which the science and craft may be dishonored and slandered. Ninthly, that no fellow go into the town by night except he have a fellow with him, who may bear him record that he was in an honest place. Tenthly, that every master and fellow shall come to the assembly, if it be within 3 miles of him, if he have any warning, and if he have trespassed against the craft, to abide the award of the master and fellows. 11thly, that every master and fellow that has trespassed against the craft shall stand to the correction of other masters and fellows to make him accord, and if they cannot accord, to go to the common law. 12thly, that a master or fellow make not a mould stone, square, nor rule to no lown, nor let no lown work within their lodge, nor without to mould stone. 13thly, that every mason receive and cherish strange fellows when they come over the country, and set them on work if they will work, as the manner is. That is to say, if the mason have any mould stone in his place, he shall give him a mould stone and set him on work. And if he have none, the mason shall refresh him with money unto the next lodge. 14thly, that every mason shall truly serve his master for his pay. 15thly, that every master shall truly make an end of his work, task, or journey, wheresoever it be. These be all the charges and covenants that ought to be read at the installment of master, or making of a Freemason or Freemasons. The Almighty God of Jacob, who ever have you and me in his keeping, bless us now and ever. Amen. Now it may be granted at once that all this relates to operative masonry, but it cannot be granted that it relates to operative masonry alone, or to a mere operative craft such as that of tailors or shoemakers. There is no evidence of any such rules laid down for any such craft. Here, however, we find masons laid under obligations of the highest morality, not only in their relations to one another, but to all around them, and bound above all to be true men to God and the Holy Church, to use no error or heresy, and to be true liegemen to the King. It is unnecessary to point out how in further respects the moral law is enforced, but the question may again be asked of those who regard masonry as having been a mere common craft in the 17th century, what other craft had any such rules, or in what craft any such regard was paid to the character and conduct of members. It has been a peculiar distinction of the Masonic fraternity from the most ancient times to which its origin can be traced, that it has insisted on the strictest scrutiny into the character and conduct of those asking admission into it, and that it has exercised supervision over its members as to their observance of the moral law and their obedience to the law of the land. The charges which have just been quoted are very similar to those contained in the celebrated York Constitutions. We need not enter into the disputed question of the authenticity of these York Constitutions. It matters not to our present inquiry whether they are of the date AD 926 or much more recent. It is enough that they are of a date anterior to the beginning of the 18th century, and this cannot be disputed. The whole question will be found discussed in Findel's History of Freemasonry, in which certainly no inclination is shown to maintain the antiquity of documents or of anything connected with the Masonic system. And the conclusion appears to be that although the date AD 926 may be imaginary, yet the York Constitutions must be referred to a date of considerable antiquity. That they are older than the beginning of the 18th century must be admitted, unless it is supposed that they were fabricated by Desaguliers, Anderson and their fellows in order to carry out their scheme of Freemasonry, a supposition not for a moment to be entertained when the characters of the men are considered, or when it is considered that the scheme presented to them no advantage whatever, that they had nothing to gain by its success. It may be well to give here the words of the York Constitutions, although they are so similar to those already quoted. 1. The first charge is that you shall be true men to God and to the Holy Church, and to use no error or heresy by your understanding and by wise men's teaching. 2. That you shall be true liegemen to the king, without treason or any falsehood, and that you know no treason or treachery, but you shall give knowledge thereof to the king or to his council. 3. You shall be obliging towards all men, and as far as you can establish true friendship with them, nor mind when they are attached to another religion or set of opinions. 4. Also, you shall be true each one to other, that is to say, to every mason of the science of masonry that are masons allowed. You shall do to them as you would that they should do to you. Should any brother have trespassed against the craft or against one of the brethren, all his fellow masons must stand by him to make compensation for his trespass, that he may grow better. 5. You shall keep truly all the counsels of lodge and chamber, and all other counsels that ought to be kept by way of masonry, and to keep the sign from every man that is not a brother. 6. And also that no mason shall be in theft or thievery, for as far as he may know, that you shall be true to the Lord or master that you serve, and truly to see and work for his advantage. 7. You shall truly pay for your meat or drink wheresoever you go, to table or board. Also you shall do no villainy there, whereby the craft or science may be slandered. 8. That no mason take on him no lord's work, nor any other man's, unless he knows himself well able to perform the work, and that the craft have no slander. Also that no master mason take no work, but that he take it reasonable, so that the Lord may be truly served with his own good, and the master to live honestly, and to pay his fellows truly their pay as the manner is. 9. That no master or fellow supplant others of their work, that is to say, that if he has taken a work, or else stand master of any work, that he shall not put him out, unless he unable of cunning to make an end of his work. 10. And no master nor fellow shall take no apprentice for less than 7 years, and that no master or fellow take no allowance to be made mason without the assent of his fellows, at least 6 or 7. 11. And that the apprentice be freeborn and of limbs whole as a man ought to be. 12. Also that no fellow blame another if he knows not himself better how to do it than he whom he blames. 13. And also that no fellow, within the lodge or without, misanswer any other ungodly or reprovably without reasonable cause. And that every mason shall reverence his elder and put him to worship. 14. Also that every mason be obedient to the rulers and patrons of the order of masonry, and perform willingly what they are bid. 15. That every mason receive and cherish strange fellows when they come over the countries, and give the sign and set them on work, if they will work as the manner is. He shall help his needy brother when he knows of his need, as the manner, and if he be within 1/2 mile of him. 16. Also that no master or fellow shall receive in the lodge any other that is not made a mason, that he learn to make no mould or square, nor rule to no layer, nor set no layer within the lodge, nor without to hew or mould stones. These are the charges which you shall keep, so help you God, and your holiness, and by this book unto your power. What in the future shall be found good and useful shall be written down, and by the rulers and patrons be made known, that all the brethren may truly hold and keep them. Once more, and for the last time, let us try to imagine a guild of tailors or shoemakers having rules such as these. The term craft might be employed, but the term science would not likely be. We find both employed in these York constitutions, and whatever may be their date, they plainly show that masonry, whilst it was an operative craft, was something more than a mere operative craft at the time when they were drawn up. Of great importance in the argument concerning the antiquity of Freemasonry, and particularly concerning the existence of the Masonic system and order before 1717, and of the continued existence of that system and order after that date without essential change, is the fact of the regard generally paid by Freemasons to the festivals of St. John the Baptist and St. John the Evangelist. How is this to be accounted for but on the ground that an old system was maintained and perpetuated, retaining its old characteristic features, and all that its reformers, if so they may be called, deemed its innocent peculiarities? The Masons of Finland and other countries during the days of the prevalence of the Roman Catholic religion, had always recognized St. John the Baptist and St. John the Evangelist as their patron saints, paying special regard to their festivals, and in most places, if not in all, holding their chief meetings upon them. This practice was continued in England, Scotland, and other countries even after the Reformation, Freemasonry being slow to make any changes but such as were absolutely necessary. We find, therefore, after the year 1717 and the revival of Freemasonry in England, these festivals still observed with special regard the meetings of the lodges held in connection with them, and the names of these saints adopted in the names of lodges not only in the more ancient but also in the more recent lodges. It could not be easy to account for this on any other theory than that of continued connection, of the continued existence of the older lodges, and the perpetuation of an ancient system of Freemasonry. It is impossible to imagine that Dr. Desaguliers, Dr. Anderson, and their coadjutors, being zealous Protestants, as we know they were, should have introduced into a system devised by them a set of saints' days and saints' names, appointing the festivals of these saints to be specially observed. But it is easy to suppose, for it is the natural supposition, that finding these already incorporated in the system which they thought so excellent as to be worthy of general recommendation, they permitted them to remain, and so to be carried wherever the order extended, as all the world knows that they have been. As proof how extensive was the regard for the festival of St. John the Baptist among Masons, I may be permitted to quote the following extract from the records of the Brechin Lodge, Brechin St. Ninians, Scotland, of date the 27th of December, 1714. It is statute and ordained that every member of the lodge duly and strictly attend the brethren upon St. John's Day, yearly, for commemorating the said apostle, our patron and tutelar saint, under penalty of 40 shillings Scots. This seems very extraordinary as a record of what took place in the beginning of the 18th century in Presbyterian Scotland. But all the more does it prove the persistence of old rules, of old customs, and of an existence derived from former centuries. The Freemasons probably did not advert to any imaginable incongruity between their customs and the opinions which probably most of them entertained as Presbyterians. It is, however, more important to observe that the date, 1714, is anterior to the date, 1717, so that we have proof from the records of the Brechin Lodge of the existence of Freemasonry in Scotland before the time to which modern theorists have ascribed its invention. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.